Welcome to the Kratom Sobriety Podcast. My name is Jacob, and this afternoon I have the pleasure of speaking with Natasha. Natasha, how are you doing?
I'm doing well. Thank you so much for having me.
Oh, you're welcome. Thank you for being willing to come on to the podcast and to share your story. So, Natasha, how do you usually introduce yourself when you're meeting someone new? Feel free to tell us where you're from, what you do, and anything you'd like to share about your background.
Okay. Well, my name is Natasha. I am 23 years old and I live in Santa Barbara.
Oh, cool. That's great.
Santa Barbara, California.
Sunny California. Yeah, that's great. Well, what do you like to do for fun, or what brings you joy or helps you relax in your free time?
I'm definitely a beach person. I love to swim in the ocean, even though it's cold. It's probably one of my favorite things to do, a little cold plunge. I like art. I like to draw. So yeah, those are just a couple of things.
Cool. Yeah, I like the beach myself, and it's also cold here in New England, so I understand that too.
Yeah.
Well, since you're on a Kratom Sobriety podcast and not a Let's Talk About Fun at the Beach podcast, how long have you been off of Kratom? What's your abstinence date from Kratom?
So my date is March 10th of 2025. I first tried Kratom back in 2021, around there. I do have a history of opiate addiction. So my first time trying Kratom was around then, whenever I was withdrawing. So yeah, so I had heard about it through my partner at the time. And because, we were both sick from withdrawal, and I remember that's the first time I tried it, and it tasted really bad. So I didn't like it at first, And so, yeah, that's basically the first time I tried it. It was back then.
Back then, 2021. So quit date of March 10th, 2025. So about 4 years total use. Right now it's the 4th of May, 2025. So you've got almost 2 months clean. That's great. Well, congrats on that.
Thank you.
Yeah, you're welcome. Other than the history of opiates or anything like that, did you have any other addictions?
So my main drug of choice, I would say, and my main addiction was definitely opiates, until finally I did get off of those, and I went to treatment. I did the sober living thing. And then really after that, after I got off of opiates and stuff, that's kind of when my real Kratom addiction started, was after I got clean from everything else. So,
okay.
Yeah.
So what was your first encounter with Kratom? Like you mentioned, the bad taste, but did it take away the withdrawals? Did you have any noticeable effects?
So no, I just remember I went to work and I brought some with me, and I didn't really like the taste. I can't really remember if it even did anything, but it didn't really have that much of an effect on me at first. And 2021 was when I first tried it. And then in January of 2023, I remember I was getting out of a relationship, and I was just in a lot of emotional pain. And that's when I went to a smoke shop and I discovered the extracts. So before that, it was I tried the Kratom, whatever, with withdrawal a couple years before that. But this is whenever I really got addicted to it. So yeah, so in 2023, in January, I went into a smoke shop. And I kind of had a little curiosity about it, because I wasn't doing opiates. I didn't have a tolerance to anything at this point. So I was maybe it'll have a different effect on me now. Especially if I was trying the extracts, I kind of knew it would be stronger. And so I took my first shot of Kratom extract. And yeah, I remember just instantly loving the feeling of it. And it helped me cope with whatever I was going through at the time. And at first this is just probably a one-time thing. I just really wanted some relief. But Of course, that's not how it went. It really progressed. I started doing, I think it started with every other day. I was taking them a lot. And then it progressed to, I couldn't go to work without them. I mean, I'm a server, or I was a server for 5 years. Every day I had this routine where I would go to the smoke shop. I would pick one up. They were $20 too. I mean, it was crazy expensive for doing cheap. That daily. So yeah, I would take the shot every day before work. And then after work, towards the evening time, I would take another one. So yeah.
Okay, so yeah, you started out with one, then you got up to two, and then, basically we're taking them every day. Did it go further than that? Did you eventually get to 3, 4, 5? Where did it start to get bad, and how long did that take?
So because I know I have an addict brain,
Yeah.
I would try to take more, and I think that would like actually make me really upset because I would try to take more and then I would get like those really like negative effects from Kratom,
Yeah.
like the wobbly eyes. That was really hard. And then I would get like really bad anxiety. I would get really like jittery, just not what I was looking for. So I was only really able to take 2 a day because I had tried to do more, and it just
Okay.
like it was not even if I could have, I would have,
Gotcha. All right. So 2023, you started taking them every day, get up to like 2 a day.
Yep.
When did you first realize that maybe this was a problem and was something that was negatively affecting you versus something that was maybe, positive?
I think I realized that it was a problem when I would try to like do things without it. Like if I would go on a trip,
Mhm.
I think I realized like, oh, I am not able to be a person without this substance. Also, the financial part of it too. It was like, I'm spending so much money on this. And you know what? Also, a big factor was the mental part of it. It made me into such an angry person. Without it, I was also irritable and stuff. And even with it, like towards the end of my day, like once it wore off, like, and I was like, oh, I have to wait till tomorrow. Like, it really messed with me mentally and emotionally. I wasn't able to be patient. I wasn't able to regulate my emotions as well as I could once before. And that was like a huge problem for me because I was no longer like the same person. And, that's addiction for you, but it definitely affected me mentally and physically in a negative way.
Did that anger or frustration or negative mental effects also impact relationships or anybody around you?
Oh, absolutely.
Yeah.
Yeah. There's also like the hiding aspect of it too. Like, I think this addiction for me was very isolating and I was embarrassed about it. It's like people would get into my car and they'd be like, why do you have like a little shot? Like, is this essential oil? Like,
Yeah.
like, and I didn't even know what to say like half the time, and like, it was an addiction that I was hiding, I wasn't upfront with it. I wasn't saying good things about it. It was very lonely because I didn't know how to get out of it. I was just really, really addicted to it. And yeah.
Yeah, I totally relate with that. Kratom, unlike a lot of other drugs, that seems to be, it's not something you like party with. I've not, in all the interviews I've done, I've yet to interview one person that was like, yeah, we took this in a party setting and like would hang out with friends and take Kratom like never once. So it seems to be a very, like you just said, like an isolating drug or something that tends to be used on one's own, which I mean, addiction usually leads to that, but it doesn't usually start in that way, at least with other substances from my experience.
Right. Totally.
So you kind of knew for a while that it was a problem. What finally pushed you to quit? And was it just this last time in March that you quit once and for good? Or was there kind of an up and down and a relapse cycle? Like, how did that look like for you?
So yeah, there was definitely a relapse cycle. I had tried at least a few times to really get off of it, like not just like withdrawal on my own. Like I obviously have a past with opiates and withdrawal in that sense. And that was something that was really hard for me. But this one specifically, I feel like was so mental. And also I was living alone. So when I started Kratom extracts, I was living with my sister and whatever. And then I moved in to a studio by myself. So it made it even harder for me to realize, like, I don't know, it was just really hard to, when you're living by yourself, like, I don't know, there's not help around me. Like there wasn't any way
there's
that
no
I
one to
could
be
like,
accountable to. It's
exactly.
kind of on your own. Yeah.
Yeah. And so I think after being in that studio, so about a year after I tried the extracts, I was still taking them. And I finally was like, you know what? I am losing my ever loving mind. And I was, I was just so miserable. I was so miserable every day. Like I could not go a day without this stuff. And I was even more isolated, living by myself. And so finally I was, how do I do this? I came up with a plan and I reached out for help because, one thing that I've learned from my past is that there is help out there, but at that point I was like, you know what? I just need to tell somebody, like anybody. And so I called my grandma who lives in Florida And this is what I'm dealing with. I don't think that I was capable of sitting in my studio apartment and saying, okay, I'm not going to use this week. And so I need to go somewhere where somebody is keeping an eye on me, where I don't have a car, and where I can just sit for a week, just withdraw, detox, whatever, like just get off of it. So that's what I did. I flew to Florida. My grandma was very supportive and we just hung out for a week. And you know what? Like, interestingly enough, I did not have that bad of withdrawals from the extract, which is crazy because I was really afraid about that, and I think everybody's different in that.
Yeah.
I think it does affect everybody differently, but I was pretty surprised that I didn't have that bad of physical withdrawal. And I think just being around somebody really helped the mental side of it too, to be like, okay, like, you know what, like I'm doing a good job and I am getting off of this and it's going to be a long week, but I got through it.
Yeah.
So that was my first time quitting.
That was your first time quitting. Okay. Yeah, there's a lot of interesting things you said in there that I want to just touch on before we keep going. The mental part. I had that experience too. And this has been what I've noticed in talking to people that have a history of opiate addiction like we do. It seems like the physical stuff you can deal with, because Kratom for me, it was like, I would say it was detox light. It sucked, but it wasn't the same as heavy oxycodone withdrawal, for example. But the mental part was like 1,000 times worse. I don't know why, but it was just so much worse. Sounds like you had a similar experience with that.
Yeah, exactly. I was just thinking about that today, actually. Like, obviously, it's been quite a while since I've done opiates and been in that like active addiction. I just feel like there was something very different about the Kratom mental part of the withdrawal and the addiction itself. Yeah, it was such a mental thing for me. Like, I had absolutely no control. I could not. Yeah.
Yeah.
So I 100% agree with that.
I relate to that a lot. Okay, so when abouts did you go to Florida and have your week-long detox, and then what happened next?
Yeah, so like I said, in January 2023 is when I tried it, and in December of 2023, so, about 11, 12 months later, whatever, that's when I went to Florida for a week, so right before Christmas.
Okay.
Then, I got back and I was like, okay, like I'm free, like I'm good to go.
Yep.
And then I was like, okay, I need a healthy distraction. So I got into boxing. I think I just wanted something to, something healthy to do. And so I got into boxing. And then somewhere in between there, like between January and March is when I was doing boxing. But probably in the middle of those months, I decided I relapsed. I was like, you know what? Like, I really justified it in my head. Like, okay, I've been doing these extracts for so long. Like, I'm never touching those again. But you know what? Why don't I just do the Kratom capsules, the powder capsules? Like, that shouldn't be so bad.
Sure.
And so I remember being very hesitant about it because I had done a lot to just get off of Kratom. But finally, I made the decision to go and get a bottle of the capsules. And so that's what I did. And I remember, I had no tolerance. So really, as soon as I took one, I felt the relief instantly. I was happy because this isn't as expensive. This is just, this can work for me. And of course, it did not, because it progressively got worse. Same thing, mentally, emotionally, physically, spiritually, financially. Like, I eventually built up a tolerance again, and I ended up buying more and more and more. Yeah, it was the same cycle,
Yeah, you found yourself right back in the same addiction. It's like drinking whiskey with beer or something. It never works. It's just replacing one type of Kratom product with another type of Kratom product. All right. Well, how long did that go on for? And then did you continue to use up until March of this year when you got off it, or were there some other quits and stops in between there?
I think up until March 10th, I was basically using capsules the whole time. This is where it kind of gets into the 7-0 part of it.
Yep.
7-hydroxy or whatever. I moved out of my studio and I moved in with my mom, which is in Santa Barbara, which is 2 hours away from my studio. I continued using the capsules, and then I decided to actually move to Boston in October of 2024. And that move was specifically because I was like, I'm going to get off of Kratom again. I need a fresh start. This is the answer.
Okay.
And I'm going to start going to meetings out there. And then I got there and, reality kind of set in for me. And I was like, okay, I'm in a new place. Like, I don't think I'm going to stop just yet. And so I didn't. And then that's when it really got really bad for me again. I switched to, there's certain strains with Kratom.
Yeah.
I was taking the red Kratom for a really long time, and then I switched to gold. In my experience, I think the gold was a lot stronger, and I realized that. And that one was like making me really physically sick. And I just had such a high dosage. Like I was just every day I was throwing up, and it got to be that point of this is actually pure misery. So yeah, basically the moving to Boston was supposed to be, okay, I'm going to get clean and I'm going to start my life over.
Yeah.
But it turned from that to like actually getting way worse. So basically after this move to Boston, it was pretty short lived. I got to that place of just, I was absolutely miserable. And in February of this year of 2025, I was like, okay, I need to move back to Santa Barbara.
Middle of the New England winter, yeah. Strung out.
Yeah, exactly. So I moved back to Santa Barbara, and you know what? I knew that like I've been here before and it didn't work out for me before. So I knew I needed to do something different this time. I moved back and I was happy because I was back in the warmth, and, things were okay for a while. And I kept using for, that first month of being back. This is where I went to treatment. Santa Barbara is where I went to treatment my first time from opiate use in the past in 2021. So, I do have like a community here as far as like meetings and like things like that go. Like and people that I know, support, like I really do have that here, and I was ready to go get it back. It wasn't like I got here and I was like, okay, I'm done. I did continue to use. And then that's when I discovered 7.0.
So you found 7.0 basically in February and you quit in March. So that was a pretty short-lived time. But what was that experience like?
Yeah, so I was, still doing the capsules, and I started doing some research on Reddit. I was like, you know what? Like, what is this 7.0 stuff? Because I've been hearing about it. I don't know why it didn't really pique my interest that much when I would see it before. I guess I didn't really know what it was. But, I started doing some research on Reddit, and it's super funny because I was like, reading all of these horror stories about how don't try this, it's terrible, the withdrawal's awful. And then someone said that it's comparable to morphine, and like, all these things were being said about 7.0. And I was like, oh my God, I have to try it. And so that's what I did. I went to the smoke shop and I got my first dose of that. And I instantly was like, why did I not try this sooner? And then, quickly I realized 7.0 was my rock bottom right there. Like if I hadn't experienced the withdrawals before really that bad with like the capsules or with the extracts, like 7.0 was a different kind of monster because that got me to quit. I think around March 1st was when I first tried it. So I only used it for, I don't know, like less than like 10 days. Yeah. Wow. And so, yeah.
Were you just like going into withdrawal every night? What happened? How did you get to the point where that broke you in that short amount of time?
It was great at first, and then my dosage kept going up because I was chasing that first high.
Yeah.
And that's the thing about 7.0 is it's so scary because it was not like any kind of Kratom that I had ever tried. It really wasn't. It really mimicked the effect of opiates for me. I mean, obviously, Kratom did that for me before too. It affects that part of your brain or whatever.
Yeah.
But this was different.
Okay.
It was a lot stronger. And you know what? Like I was saying, my tolerance was just going up and up and up. And this stuff was way more expensive than regular Kratom capsules or whatever.
Yeah.
And so, that's kind of how it progressed that quickly was like I kept taking more and more because my tolerance. And then finally, I remember I was like, okay, like I'm going to try to like taper a little bit down. And as soon as I missed a dose, I think it was like less than like 6 hours of my last dose, I immediately started feeling that restless leg syndrome when I woke up out of my sleep and I was in complete misery. And I realized, okay, I'm in withdrawal. Like, we're back.
Exactly where you don't want to be.
Yeah.
Well, how did you finally break free from the 7.0 and Kratom and get off of it and get to 30 days clean and ultimately almost 2 months clean now? Like what did it and how did you get past it?
Yeah. So the first thing that I did when I woke up and I was feeling I mean, you know, the consequences of my actions. I remember like I did not want to feel like that ever again. And that was, like I said, that was it for me. I was like, after that feeling, I was like, this is it. I'm done. I'm absolutely done. And I need help. And that was the first thing. Like, I was like, whatever I need to do, whatever I've been doing has not been working for me, you know?
Yeah.
For me, going to boxing and doing something healthy, you know, just that was not enough for me. I needed real help. And so I talked to my mom. I talked to a couple of people and I was just, dude, like, I'm detoxing. Like, I think I went to like the doctors or something, trying to like have them like help my withdrawal. And, you know, they didn't even like, they were like, what even is this? They like Googled it. Nobody really knows what it is. But anyway, so after that realization, I decided I was just going to withdraw off of the 7-0. And unfortunately, I don't recommend this, but to get off the 7-0, I was taking capsules, you know, to alleviate my withdrawal.
Okay.
That's what I did. And then after that, after I was done with the capsules and like I was kind of more in like mild withdrawal at this point, I started going to meetings. And, you know, I think a big part of my story is that my mom is an alcoholic. I have a lot of addiction in my family, and being around that kind of stuff while I'm trying to get, you know, and stay clean is not ideal. It's not worth the risk for me. It's not worth the stress of being around. I think, you know, obviously like there's a lot of like just family dynamics that it's hard to deal with, especially in a time like that where you're just trying to regulate everything.
Of course.
So, you know, that was my first thing. Was I started with going to meetings, and then I got into sober living because I knew that, you know, I mean, it had been almost 3 years. I was just like, I need something. Like, I need to make sure that I do not go back to this. And so that's what I did. I went to sober living on March 14th, actually.
Okay, so once you started to feel a little bit better, got yourself tapered down to a point where you were comfortable. Okay. Yeah, there's a couple of things I want to just say and kind of react to. I think it's one, you know, as someone that's 23, when I was 23 was the first time I got off opiates, and I'm obviously a little bit older than you, and I'm here now. It's been a long journey. So the fact that you're doing this at this age, I have to commend you, because a lot of people will just put it off and put it off and put it off. But like recognizing that you have to make some of those changes is huge. So I commend you for doing that too. I also have the family history of addiction and alcoholism. And you're right. What do they say in a lot of treatment and in a lot of meetings and such? It's like people, places, and things. Recognizing the people you're around aren't conducive to your recovery, even though they might be doing their best to help. They just don't have the tools or the equipment, or can't give you the type of environment that's conducive to recovery, i.e. the places. So the fact that you've able to make those changes is good. What kind of meetings are you doing? Is it NAAA or going to the Kratom meetings? What's your strategy there?
So I started off kind of doing more NA stuff, NA meetings. But, you know, the longer that I have been in recovery now, I'm starting to realize I've been going to both, because I think the more meetings for me personally, the better. And I think that I can really give credit to those meetings because, like I said, I've tried to do it on my own before without that support. And I have almost 2 months. And like, that's a miracle, because I don't even think that I've gotten, and I'm talking clean off of everything, you know, I haven't gotten that long in a very long time. And so I do think that the meetings, AA and NA, have both like just helped me so much on top of the sober living, you know. So yeah, NA and AA. I have a sponsor. I'm working the program of AA right now.
That's great. Yeah, it's great that you've been able to make those changes and make some decisions. All right. What does your life look like now that you've got almost 2 months off Kratom? Are you still in sober living? What are you doing besides meetings to kind of keep yourself out of the fire? And what kind of positive things are you looking forward to?
You know, I think putting one foot in front of the other and just doing the next right thing, and kind of, you know, obviously life, no matter what, is going to be hard and there's going to be ups and downs. And I think I'm trying to embrace that, the discomfort, the discontent, you know, I'm trying to embrace that because it is part of life. And I think that some of the positive things, like what my life is like now, is, you know, this is really small, but I'm able to go to work and like do my job without being on drugs, without being on Kratom, you know, like, and that's super simple, but like, I haven't been able to do that in such a long time. And it's really does feel normal now. and I'm not waking up every day hungry and not wanting to eat because I want to make sure that I feel my kratom. You know what I mean? Like
Yeah, no.
I can be a normal human person and just, not be a prisoner to a substance. And also the friends that I make, I think that's the other thing too, is like I have people around me that are going through the same thing and that have been through the same similar things, and that has helped me a lot too. And just the support and the spirituality of it too. I feel like I'm a lot more connected to my higher power. Yeah, so it really a lot of things, and I'm just in the beginning.
That's good. Yeah, making the right connections and building the right relationships to help set yourself up for long-term sobriety. That's awesome. Have you had any setbacks in the last, almost 2 months, or any kind of close calls where you felt like using, or
I think that it's normal to have some cravings, of course, but setbacks, I don't know. Not that I can think of. But, life gets stressful, and I definitely have thoughts sometimes about wanting to just give in. But at the end of the day, like, that's why I'm so grateful for sober living, because it's created this space and relationships and connections that I don't want to lose at all. I want to build a life that I am afraid of losing. So, yeah, that's where I'm at. I have cravings, but
you're doing the right things to get through them and manage them. That's good. As a 23-year-old in recovery in the spaces you're in, are you finding a lot of relationships with people your own age? What does that look like? What kind of community are you building?
It's a mixed bag for sure.
Good.
And there is also a lot of people my own age that I've been able to build friendships with. And so I'm grateful for that. I feel like it's hard for me to it's rare, not rare, but I just feel like kratom is not talked about enough in addiction, at least from my experience. But I have met some people that relate to what I'm going through. Obviously, like I said in the beginning, addiction is addiction, but it's been making me want to go and attend maybe some kratom meetings, because I don't know. I just feel like I don't hear enough about kratom. And I don't know if that makes any sense.
It does. The meetings I go to, it's not talked about too much. I will say in the last year, it's gotten more and more prevalent. I don't know where I'm at in the Northeast, similarly where you were living for a little while. It seems like a lot of people here have switched from harder opiates, like whatever's out there now. It's not even fentanyl anymore. It's some kind of other weird shit, but they're just so scared or don't even like the experience that's going with that a lot of them are switching to 7-OH and then getting really addicted. We've had several people in one of the Smart Recovery meetings I go to over the last few weeks that have just shown up that have had a problem with that in particular. So it seems to be getting more and more prevalent. But yeah, you're right. And yeah, the medical community, for the most part, they don't have any idea. So it's still very, very, very unknown. But I think that's starting to change. But you're right. The more stories we can get out there and the more people that we could help, I think the better.
Yeah, absolutely. Maybe this is in my own head, but I just think that some people have an idea that, and I think I thought this is why I'm saying this, but some part of me, I think because I've been on fentanyl before in the past, I'm maybe my addiction's not bad enough. Maybe, but it took me a while to realize that kratom is a drug, and that's how I feel about that,
Yeah, I feel the same way. The way I look at things too is whatever you're doing in your life, whether that's drugs, alcohol, exercise, is it making your life better or worse? If it's making your life worse, it doesn't matter if it's sugar. If someone is able to eat a lot of cake and that's great and that makes them happy and they don't gain a lot of weight, whatever. If it's not giving them diabetes or making their life better, more power to them. Someone else, that could be super detrimental, and that may, wreck their mental health, and they may gain a bunch of weight and then have physical health problems. So if these things aren't helping you just because someone else is able to do it and use it in moderation or recreation, and it actually improves their life, that's great. Go for it. You do whatever you want. It's your life. But I think you can't look at things in one binary category versus another, in my opinion.
Yeah, absolutely.
All right. Well, let's see. A couple more questions, and then I think we can wrap up. Maybe a fun one before a couple more heavy ones. If you could take a dream trip with no budget limit, where would you go?
Oh, gosh. Oh, I don't know. Probably somewhere in the Caribbean.
Well, there's a lot of options there. So you can pick a island or two or three. What's the kind of piece of advice you'd offer to someone else who's thinking about quitting Kratom or 7-OH?
I think my advice would be that it's okay to not be able to do it on your own, because for me that's how I got help. That's how I got through this. That's how I almost have 2 months. Yeah, I think that it's great to ask for help and to ask for support and to need that. It's really, really difficult to get through. And yeah, basically that's it. It's okay to just need help.
Yeah, I would say it's more than okay. It's probably something you're going to need, whether that's,
Yeah,
sober living, meetings, all of the above,
absolutely.
detox, rehab, like whatever. Like you're probably going to need some level of help. And you're going to need to talk to someone and need to do something. So don't be afraid of that, because
Totally.
you're stuck.
Yes.
All right. When you did go to sober living, or as you were getting off of Kratom, other than the quick taper, did you do anything else to kind of help with the mental or physical withdrawals, or did you just, tough it out otherwise?
For me personally, the restless leg syndrome was really, really hard to deal with. And so the only thing that I really did for that was heating pads, on your legs or whatever. And like hot showers was something that I did a lot too, to like be able to get sleep. So yeah, that definitely helped me in withdrawal. And I know that there's some like other things, maybe some like natural remedies or whatever, but that's what worked for me.
Yeah, I did the same with the hot showers and baths for the restless legs. That was the worst of the worst symptoms, other than the mental stuff. But
Yeah.
you can totally get through it if you're listening to this. It's totally doable. All right, before we wrap up, is there anything that I didn't ask you that you'd like to share, or something on your mind or your heart that you'd want to make sure that listeners hear before we wrap up?
No, I can't think of anything off the top of my head, but.
Well, that's all good. Well, Natasha, thank you again for sharing your story. I'm sure this is going to be very helpful. And congrats again on almost 2 months clean. Keep it up. And I'm sure you're going to have 6 months, a year before you know it.
Thank you. Thank you so much.
You're welcome. Well, take care.